Right, friends, so the World Cup is all over, and it didn't quite pan out as some of us hoped that it would, or predicted that it would. But I hope you all had at least a memorable experience. I know a lot of you went to the games and I saw some great games, and it was really fun. It was such an experience, But now it's over. And it's back to reality, It's tough to go back to reality. I loved all the games, There were so many rugby, it was like heaven, half a month of all these rugby games. But I almost want to say exactly the same about the series that we were busy with. We had the series just all across the room for the whole World Cup period. And today we end that, So it was great experience, but it's all over now, It's going to end today. And my hope is that, like with the World Cup, that the experiences remain with you. I'm hoping that what you've learned or experienced during this series, the sermon series, that it will also remain with you. And it will take something of that with you, even after the World Cup. I certainly will. I think for myself, what it changed in me was just the fact that I'm a little bit more open eyes, open ears, more of an open heart, just for the possibility that when I encounter somebody that I didn't know before, that I may just be able to build a relationship with that person. And I may just be able to touch that person's life. Because it's not in my hands. It's the way God wants to use me. And I'm open for that. And it certainly changed something in my perspective. Now, just to quickly remind you, in case you missed anything in the series, I'm quickly going to give you a recap. The first week in the series, we talked about, I challenged you to listen to God's promptings and just walk across rooms or walk across parking lots or walk across an office block or maybe a schoolyard or wherever you might find yourself. Church halls as well, for that matter. And to people who you don't necessarily know that well. And just remove yourself from your circle of comfort and walk over to the zone of the unknown. Because that's often where God will do His best work. That was the first week. The second week, I said, well, okay, so what happens? You get into a zone of unknown, what do you do then? And I challenge you to build friendships. To learn to listen to other people's stories. And have an open ear towards heaven and an open ear towards the other person. To really listen to their needs. To try and find, but what is it that they need? And then you listen to God, and maybe He's just telling you to go and to help fulfill that specific need. And to constantly have that question in your mind of, what can I do to build into somebody's life? How can I be a blessing for this person? And if you have that as a constant in the back of your mind, you're going to touch lives. And in the third week, last time, we talked about, the power of our own stories. And how it can help others if we learn to share our stories in a concise and a humble and a clear way. When the opportunity arises and people, say, well, we've got quite a relationship going on here, you seem like a nice guy, some friendship blossoming or being built here. I'm just wondering, why on earth are you a Christ follower? I see you go to church and so on. Why on earth are you doing that? And that we must learn how to tell our stories in such a way that it will be concise, that it will be short, but that it will also be clear and very humble in the way we do it, and very straightforward, very simple way of telling our stories. Now, I hope you all had time to go and reflect on your stories and sort of learn how to tell it well. If you haven't, still some time, I invited you to send me some emails, and certainly since the last time to now, I've heard a few of your stories, and it's great. It's great to hear that. Because there's a simple way. Here's the formula. What was life like before? Then how did you encounter Christ? What happened then? And then how is life now? And I said last time as well, I know many of you have been Christ followers all your life, and it's very difficult to think of a time when you were without God in your life. You can't remember what you were like when you were 4 years old, and it's hard. And I said, my suggestion was that you think of a specific period in your life, of something very specific, how God intervened in your life. Here was an issue that you dealt with, a specific issue that created a problem for you. This is how your faith in Jesus helped you, and this is how you encountered God in the midst of that storm. And this is how things are now. Simple formula, Do it in less than a minute. Try and write it down and see if you can do that. And you're very welcome to send me an email with your story, and I will give you some critique. I will critique it for you. You know, positive criticism, and help you to make it just a little bit better, so that you know your own story. Anyway, whatever you learned from this series, whatever you got out of this series, I hope that you're all at least inspired to take some walks across rooms. Because who knows how God would like to use you wherever you are. The question now is, how will that growth continue? You know, how will you ensure that you keep on taking walks across rooms? You know, even though this series is now finished. You know, how will you be inspired to do that? Now, to do that, we need to constantly be aware of the bigger picture, the grander vision. Sorry, that's isn't me. Should I turn it off?
I have no idea what's going on.
Let's try that. Is that alright? Yeah. Okay. Sure. Thanks, Rob. Right. So let me explain it this way. We need to keep the grander vision. Now I'm free. Okay. Now I can go. So friends, we need to keep the bigger picture in mind, the grander vision, so to speak, if we really want to complete this series in our hearts, even though we don't continue with it here. So let me tell you a story to explain this. Years ago, we went on a trip to Egypt. Now, at varsity, one of my subjects was ancient Near Eastern studies, and Egyptology was part of that. And I loved it. I absolutely loved Egyptology. You know, the ancient history, the pyramids, the stories about their worldview, and the Nile River. It was great. We went for a 2-week trip to Egypt, in which we went to loads of these different monuments and temples, and saw the mummies and the pyramids and the Sphinx, and a few days on the Nile itself. And then part of this trip, part of that itinerary, was 2 days at the Red Sea. Now, this was my first trip, our first trip to the Red Sea. And I know the Red Sea is regarded as probably the best diving spot in the world, scuba diving spot. So we decided, well, we're going to do a little bit of a PADI scuba diving course before we go out, so that we're ready when you go to the Red Sea. At least we can dive, at least we can do some scuba diving. So in the end, and this is actually a story for another day, but we did our open water exam at the end of November in a quarry near Peterborough. Now, just think about it a bit. It was freezing. Friends, it was freezing. I'll tell the story another day, maybe over a braai. I'll tell you what happened there. I think we saw at least a pike and some tires under the water. So it wasn't great diving, but we got our certification. We passed our PADI exams, so we were scuba divers. So anyway, so we went there, and we stayed for 2 days. So we at the Red Sea. So the first day we got there in the afternoon, and I thought, okay, so the next day they're going to pick us up, take us on a boat somewhere, into the deep blue, and then we're going to dive there and see some fish, wherever they're going to drop us off. And that's exactly how it happened. That is how it happened. But what I wasn't prepared for was what happened that afternoon. Because we had our masks back then, and our snorkels and fins, and we thought, well, let's just go into the water here where we are, just next to the shore. And the water was sort of a deep blue color, and it was just beautiful scenery, sort of desert in the background, and then this lovely dark deep blue sea. And we thought, well, let's just take it anyway and go for a bit of a swim. And my face under the water, it blew my mind. I wasn't ready for what I saw. It was like stepping into an aquarium, like into a fish tank. It was parrotfish and angelfish and clownfish and all these different things everywhere. And it was so colourful. It was vibrant. It was alive. The coral. I mean, you could hear it. You could hear the fish on the coral. The parrotfish eating away the coral. And it blew my mind. And then I came up, and people were sort of sitting obliviously, on the side, just wasn't aware at all of what this whole new, bigger world just underneath the surface. So I put my mask in again, and it was absolutely amazing. It was mind blowing to me, and I got hooked. I got hooked once I saw that there, and there was nothing wrong with people enjoying the scenery, next to the hotel and the desert and so on, because it was beautiful. It was great. But friends, there was another world within everyone's grasp. If they were just willing to take the plunge, literally, they were just willing to take the plunge, and it wasn't that it wasn't there. It was there for everyone to take, for everyone to taste. But because they didn't, they missed out on the grander vision, so to speak. Now in Luke 5, there's an interesting story that alludes to these two worlds. You know, to the normal way of looking at things, just seeing things above the surface as they are, or this grander vision. This realization that there's just so much beneath the surface if we are just willing to take the plunge. And if we are, it will change our lives forever. It will just change our outlook on life if we were just willing to take that step and look under the water. Basically, here's the story. Jesus was standing next to a lake, and so there's water involved in the story as well. So Jesus was standing next to a lake, and on the shore of a massive lake, and the crowds were sort of pushing in on him, and he didn't have a lot of space anymore because they wanted to listen to what he was saying. And then Jesus eyed those two fisher boats, standing just there, and the fishermen looked like they didn't have much of a catch, the night before. They were just sitting, mending their nets and so on. And so Jesus got into one of the boats. A guy by the name of Simon owned the boat, and he got in and said, "Simon, would you just push me sort of in a little bit off the shore?" And he did that, and that was the stage that Jesus used. He stood in the boat and he taught all these people on the shore. And after he's done that, when he finished and the crowd dispersed, he said, "Simon, let's just go out a little bit in the water and throw out your nets. Just try it and throw it." And this guy, Simon, said, "With all due respect, sir, we fished all night. We fished all night. And we are fishermen by trade. We know these waters so well. We know the conditions. We know there are no fish out there this morning. There was none last night. We didn't even catch a small one. But you know what? I listened to you as you spoke to these people. And because you said it, I'll throw out my net." So, okay, let's do it. If maybe you know something that I don't, let's just do it. And throw out this net. And guess what? Just after he's done it, it was filled with fish. Filled with fish. This was a monstrous haul of fish. So much fish that they've never seen so many fish together. And they started putting it in, but the nets were on the point of bursting. So he called his buddies over from the shore, and James and John came, and they took all the fish and took 2 boatloads, basically, of fish. The boats almost sank. So many fish were there. And anyway, can you imagine these 3 guys, Peter, James and John, what they were thinking? That was probably, they were fishermen all their lives, but they never had a haul of fish like this. They never had to call reinforcements before. This is the first time. It was an unheard of thing to call reinforcements for your catch. It was a great problem to have. Anyway, this was absolutely amazing. But then Simon started to connect the dots, and he thought, well, now I know there wasn't any fish here. I know that because of why I'm a fisherman. I know that there wasn't any fish here. But then I listened to Jesus, to what he said. He talked about life and about all different things that I didn't quite understand, but he said some amazing things. And then he told me to go and fish. And now I have so many fish I can't handle it. There must be a connection between all these things. And then he fell on his knees and he just said, "I don't know who you are, but I think you should leave. Because I'm a sinful guy. I'm a sinner. And you're obviously quite holy. But you know what life is about. I don't. But you do. And I think you should just let me be and just leave me. Because I'm not worth being close to you." And I think James and John felt pretty much the same. And Jesus said, Hey guys, I want to be with you. I want to be with you. And you know what? Do you think that was amazing? Catching a few fish? It was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. But wait. What if, instead of just catching fish, you could help to change people's destinies forever? What if you could become fishers of men instead of just fishermen? Stick with me, guys. Stick with me.
and you will see the grander vision. You will see what life is really about, and it will blow your minds. It will blow your minds. Because just looking on the surface, it's okay. You can get by. But looking under the surface, seeing the grander vision of what's really going on, that will be an adventure of life. Friends, Jesus' question was challenged to his disciples and to us is ultimately this. Are you going to throw your one and only life into pursuing small fish? Just doing what is necessary to survive here? Just going through motions? Or will you risk tossing your nets in anticipation of catching something that really makes life worth it? Will you spend your days looking at scenery above the water, or are you willing to put on a mask and take the plunge and see the grander vision, what is really going on, what life is really about? Will you remain in your circle of comfort, where you're comfortable, where things are like, you do things like you've always done it? Or will you risk walking across a room and seeing what God can do in you and through you? Maybe walking across an office block. Maybe getting on a plane and going to a different country. Will you risk getting out of your comfort zone and going into the zone of power? You know, for these fishermen, it would have been nothing wrong if they remained fishermen. You know, it's a good profession, a good job. You know, and I think they've probably just reached the pinnacle of their profession, you know, catching all these fish. But Jesus said, you know, there's a lot more going on just underneath the surface of life. You can remain where you are, doing things the way you've always done it. It will be good. Come with me. It will be great. Basically, are you going to settle for a lesser vision? Or are you going to live for the grander vision? That's the question. Now, to each one of you, if you are willing to take the plunge, if you are willing to live for a grander vision, two quick observations. For any of you who wants to do that. Okay, number one, the priority is always people. Priority is always people. Let's say, let's just quickly play along with me on this one. I need your imaginations to go quickly. Let's just say this car, it's a nice car, except for the St. George's flat, but anyways, it's a nice car. And now, what I want you to imagine is that this car represents material goods. Okay? Material goods. And I have some money here, £1 and 2 pennies. Okay, so £1 and 2 pennies represents money. And let's say my phone, I know it looks like a little book, it's a phone. so let's just say this represents career. Okay, you all have your smartphones, you know, and you probably with your emails on there and all of that. So let's just say this represents your career. And let's just say this mic represents, sorry friends, I'm going to take it out. This mic represents fame. Okay? Just imagine that for a moment. Now, let's quickly mark each one of those things. And I've got different stickers, but I'm going to use because you see all these things have one thing in common. They're all temporary. They're all temporary. So I've got two different stickers that I'm going to use. I'm going to use there's a little one here with skull and crossbones. Okay, so the reason I've got that is to say, well, it's temporary. There will be an end. You know, like a skull and crossbones, there will be an end to it. And then I've got a little heart, you know, like the say love is whatever and all of those things. So I've got a little heart to represent something that will remain forever. Okay, is that fair? There's two things. So, what do you think? Should I put a heart or skull and crossbones on a car and material goods, is that forever or is it temporary? Temporary. Okay, so let's put a little skull and crossbones on this one. What about money? Yeah, I mean, we all need money. It gives you options. You know, a lot of people put all their lives into getting money, as much money as possible. Skull and crossbones or heart? Skull and crossbones. Okay, I actually agree with you there. You know, money. My dad always says money is round. You know, it comes and goes. You know, it comes and goes. So let's just put a little skull and crossbones on money as well. What was the other thing? Oh yes, career. I mean, people put their lives into their careers. I mean, to further it and really work at it. So, heart or skull? Skull. Okay. That's a tough one, but yeah, you put so much time in it, and still it's just temporary. What was that? Fame. Oh yes. Now, celebrity culture. You know, all the magazines is all about celebrity culture and so on. Skull or a heart? Okay, skull. Agree. Everything we see there, friends, no earthly commodity will make it from this world to the next. No earthly commodity. Not bank accounts, not titles, not homes, not land, not everything. But, yes, I didn't tell you this, please come here. Okay, so, but, people, the souls of people, skull or a heart? You notice that. You notice that. And I could go around. I don't have enough stickers. But I could put a heart on each one of you. Because your soul, who you are, will remain forever. It's the only thing that will remain forever, friends. All this other stuff, fame and career and material goods and money and all of that, it will be gone. It will be gone. But your soul will remain forever. That's the only thing that will cross over from here to the other side. And you know what? Jesus knew this. He knew this. And that's why he put his whole life. He just put everything into this and saying, you know what, friends? People matter. People matter. And eternities matter. And you're going to spend eternity somewhere. And you're either going to spend it with God or you're going to spend it without God. The Bible says, they gave names to it. They say, you know, if you spend eternity with God, they call it heaven. They say if you spend eternity without God, they call it hell. Whatever you want to call it, the fact is, you're going to spend eternity somewhere. Either with God or without Him. And because Jesus knew people matter, He just put everything into that. It was all about people. Go and read the stories. Go and read what Jesus did. It was all about people. The most important things in life, friends, are not things. They're people. They're people. And that is the essence of grander vision living. This is what Jesus wanted His disciples to understand, and this is what He wants us to understand. And if we get this one thing, if you just walk out here and you get this one thing, that people matter, you will prioritize people in your life. We will care for people more than anything else. We will be radically inclusive, saying, you know, whenever we meet a person, whenever we meet anyone, even though they may talk differently than us, even though they may look different to us, even though they may have a different background or think different than us, that doesn't matter. They're people. And people matter to God because their souls are eternal. Everything else is temporary. Not. And you are all invited to see this grander vision and to live for this grander vision, to be fishers of men and women rather than just fisher or fisherwomen. In Matthew 5:16, Jesus says this. He says, "Let your life shine before others in such a way that they may see your good works and then glorify your Father who is in heaven." Listen to this. In such a way. In such a way implies that there must be different ways to shine our light. You know, we can decide whether we're going to shine it just sort of a little bit, you know, teeny weeny little flame, or in such a way that God will be glorified through it. That it will have an impact on people's lives. Whether we are going to reach out to others in such a way that they will see Jesus' radical, inclusive love for everyone. Everyone, friends. From the big issue seller on the street corner, to the guy sitting in the pub, drinking his sorrows away, to the sea and of people. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what their background is. Jesus loves them all. In the end, it comes down to this. We can all catch fish all day long or do whatever we do. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's some great professions I know here amongst you, and it's great, and it's absolutely awesome. And God calls us to work, you know, that's a sermon series for another time. But if you really want to make the most of your life, learn to also become fishers of men and women. Invest in people. Love people. Be generous to people. Make friends where you can. Help where you can. Because who knows what God will do through you? Who knows how God wants to use you to bless somebody else's life? Everything God has given to us, everything is entrusted to us, is given to us so that we will be a blessing to other people. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, God will use you to change somebody's eternity. And also here, that God wants to use you as you are. He's saying you must let your light shine. He's not saying let your pastor's light shine, or let your life group leader's light shine, or let other Christians' lights shine. He says, let your light shine. Nobody can let your light shine. You're the only one who can do that. Meaning each one of us has a role to play. If we would just do the small bit that each one of us can do, we would touch a lot more lives. You don't have to be any more talented, or any richer, or any smarter, or any more of anything to partner with God. All you have to do is to be willing to be used by Him every day, in the way He wants to use you. Okay, that was the first observation. Second observation is the focus is always on potential. Focus is always on potential in grand visionary. You know, right through the Bible, there's this theme that I find fascinating, and that is God is always seeing the potential in people. I mean, you looked at the shepherd boy, and he saw David, the greatest king of Israel. You looked at the murderer who fled his country, and he saw Moses, the guy who led a nation out of slavery. He looked at somebody who was just out to destroy the church, out to annihilate it, to wipe it off the face of the earth. And he saw Paul, the writer of almost half the New Testament. He looked at a bunch of dirty, uneducated, probably smelly fishermen, and he saw his band of disciples that changed the world. Jesus always sees what people could be if they trust Him, rather than what they are like at that moment. He looks past our self-centeredness and sees the potential for servitude. He looks past our rebelliousness and sees our righteousness. He looks past our quick temper and sees the potential for kingdom building. And we need to develop this way of looking as well at other people. When we look at others, we need to start seeing their potential and treat them as the valuable people that they are, no matter who they are. Remember, the price that Jesus paid on the cross was just as much the price for them as it was for us. Whether people acknowledge it or yet, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. it doesn't change anything about what He's done. What He's done for them as much as for us. He loves them as much as He loves you. And we need to act in such a way towards them that they will feel His love practically in their lives through their interaction with us. Now, I hope you all had a chance in the last couple of weeks to think about your before and after stories when we spoke about it last time. And you can still go and do that after this service. But whatever your story may be, I bet that God intervened in some way in your life. And I believe that He changed your life in some way. And changed some things that you didn't think was possible because of what He's done. Maybe it was an anger issue. Maybe it was depression. Maybe it was just the way you handle conflict, or your marriage, or unforgiveness, or pain from the past. But God changed it. He helped you with it. He carried you through it. He sustained you through it. And friends, if He could change that for you and me, He can change it for anyone out there. And also change it for anyone in here, if you're still struggling. If He saw potential in us, He sees potential in every person that's ever been alive on this earth. No matter what they've done, no matter who they are, no matter what their background is, He sees potential in them. And He's the only one that can help them to fulfill it. If they just embrace His amazing grace. And that is why, friends, we need to learn to put the spectacles of potential on whenever we look at people. Don't look at what they are. Look at what they can become after an encounter with God's grace. Don't look at who they are. Look at what they can become through an encounter with God's grace. You know, one of the empowering stories, or powerful transformation stories in the Bible is the story of a guy by the name of Matthew. Now, Matthew was a tax collector, somebody who stole money from other people, and he was really universally hated. The tax collectors were universally hated. But one day, Jesus walked past this guy and saw the potential in this guy living so far from God. And He just simply said to him, "Follow me." And Matthew did. And it changed his whole life. And he took the risk of following Jesus. He plunged in. He plunged in after Jesus. And because Jesus saw him not for who he was, he saw him for who he could become. And as his life was changing, he realized, well, all his tax collector buddies and all his other friends still living far from God, they were missing out on this full life. They were missing out what was going on right beneath the surface. They were sitting on the shore while there was all this vibrant marine life going on around them. And he didn't quite know how to approach them, except doing the one thing he was really good at, throwing parties. He would throw a party. It was usually wild parties, but he could throw a party. But this time it was a party with a difference. He decided to invite all his old buddies, all his tax collector friends, to this party. But then he also invited his new friends. He invited Jesus and his disciples to come to this specific party. And he was hoping that they would just take the risk. That they would take the risk and walk across the room and build some friendships. And he probably thought, who knows? Who knows? Maybe some conversations will happen that will also change their lives as it changed my life. Here's what I want you to understand, friends. Matthew didn't have it all figured out. He didn't have all the answers. He just had this one big experience, an encounter with Jesus that changed his life. And he wanted his friends to experience the same thing. So he did the only thing he could do. He created an opportunity for these friends of his to meet Jesus. It's the only thing he could do, and that's why he did it. So his life was changed through it, and he wanted his friends to have the same experience. Jesus said in John 10 verse 10, he said that he came so that we will have life and have it in abundance, abundantly. He came so that we will live with a grander vision. That's why he came. And he wants us for all people. And we have the privilege, friends. We have the privilege to help people on their journeys. We also have the privilege to sometimes help them to discover the grander vision for themselves. It's a great privilege. So let's just walk out with the realization that nothing matters as much to people, as people. Nothing matters as much to God as people. Not all the money in the world, not all the material goods, or all the houses, all the jobs, all the titles, or all the fame in the world means as much as one soul. Because only souls, people, are forever. So you can put everything else together in one pot. One soul will always be with me. So friends, let's remember this. People are not temporary, they're forever. And let's open our eyes for the potential of people, even if they can't see their own potential yet. Even if they don't feel so great about themselves. Let's go and look at them with God's eyes and see who they really are, who they could become when they meet Him. And remember, it all starts with a walk across a room. So here's my challenge to each one of you. We're going into the Christmas season now. Okay, so there will be a lot of functions, a lot of dinner parties, a lot of different events going on. And I would like to challenge each one of you to walk across a room at each one of these parties. Okay, so wherever you go, whenever you're at a party or a function, and especially when we have our Christmas Carol service here in a month's time. It's my hope and it's my prayer that you will all invite as many friends and colleagues and neighbours and acquaintances and postmen and whoever else you want to invite to our Carol service here in a month's time. I really want to ask you if you would please do that. Invite as many people as you can to that service. And then I want there to be a buzz of excitement as we all walk across the room and meet people and encounter people that we haven't met before. That we reach out to others. And we just go and build friendships. Just listen to their stories. Because who knows? Maybe God will use you to change somebody's eternity. Be open to that. Amen. Let's just pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much that you reach out to each one of us, and thank you that you made a grander vision life possible for each one of us. Lord, and I just ask you that you will open our eyes, open our ears, Lord, open our hearts, just for the possibility of you using us in other people's lives. That you want to touch other people through us, and Lord, I thank you for the privilege of just being your child, and you want to use each one of us. And therefore I just ask, Lord, come and make us fishers of men and women. Help us to see things in perspective. Help us to realize that people really matter to you. And therefore they should also matter to us. Help us to live with the spectacles of potential on our eyes constantly. That we will see in others what you see in them. And just help us to live with open hands and hearts. And just live with grace. And extend your grace to others as you extend it to us. I praise in Jesus' name.